everyone who goes to the gym knows and understands the kind of effort that it takes to become super jacked. It generally takes years of dedicated, hard effort and training and discipline and consistency, dieting, all that stuff to become, properly jacked. And generally, steroids aside, when you see someone who looks really fucking good, especially when they're lean, instantly you have a level of respect for them. And that's because you can appreciate the amount of hard work that has probably gone into building that physique. And that's also partially why steroids is so hated in the lifting community, health and fitness community. It's basically cheating out on that hard work. And I'm not saying that people who do steroids aren't working hard, because you still need to lift often and heavy and get your diet right and all that stuff to get the most out of steroids, but it makes getting bigger easier. And that mindset of dedication, consistency, hard work is really the way that you should approach everything in your life. And that's why I believe that a lot of these big entrepreneur influencers, self-improvement guys start off by getting jacked. I think of Hamza, I think of Alex Hormozi, all these guys who have made it in most areas of their life. They've made a lot of money, whatever. They started off getting jacked first because it's the easiest way to fall in love with the discipline, hard work, consistent lifestyle. Because once you get used to seeing, progress in the gym, you learn to understand that delayed gratification is so much more satisfying than instant gratification. And so naturally, that's the first thing they, quote unquote, max out. They get super jacked because they just fall in love with hard work and discipline and consistency. And so for all those people that, are lifting, it's quite literally as simple as applying that mindset of getting jacked into every single aspect of your life. And that's literally how you view everything and how success is built, through hard work, consistency, and dedication. Dedication. You can't just, in the same way that you don't just get a 10 out of 10 physique from lifting every now and then for a couple of years, you've got to dedicate yourself, 5-6 times a week, every week, for years on end to get that kind of physique. And you've got to dial in your diet, and you've got to, cut out all the rubbish, get your sleep right, all these things to get that physique. And that's why people respect you, because they understand that it is not easy to get that kind of physique, but you went and did it. And so that's the reward you get. You earn respect for yourself and from other people. And so applying that to, a business, it's the exact same thing. You've got to put hard work into building this, whatever website, building a website, making the ads, finding the right product, all this stuff, and optimizing. There's lots of steps and lots of hard work required, and dedication and consistency to make a successful business. And chances are you won't see results straight away. And that's why I think that getting jacked is the first step to becoming successful. Once you've been lifting for 5 years and you may not have a 10 out of 10 physique, but you look fucking good compared to most people. Because most people aren't consistent for that long. They give up after a couple of years, or they get inconsistent, or they get lazy with their diet. Rather than dialing it in as the years go on, they get lazy. And that's the difference between successful people and not successful people. The successful ones as the years go on, they fall in love with it more and they dial it in further and they get more intense and they work harder and harder. Where the lazy, the unsuccessful people work the other way. They don't see results after a couple of years. And so, they give up. They accept that, that's not that, it doesn't work, and they give up and they dial things down. They go from 5 days a week to 4, eat a little bit more rubbish in their diet, don't quite hit their macros, all this stuff. And all of a sudden, this is where this gap grows between the people who fall in love with the grind and people who don't. And that's why I titled it the way I did. It's got to become a way of life, and just more than just the gym. But it is definitely the first, most important and easiest stepping stone to learn and understand what it takes to earn true respect and what true delayed gratification looks like, and what it actually feels like every step of the way to achieving something that is, respected and prestige within society and to yourself. So rather than going out and, half-assing it and, starting a business and you don't really know what you're doing, that's why I think a lot of successful people go that way first. And rather than, there are business people that go straight into business and fall in love with that way. But in my opinion, it's easier to go to the gym, the physical aspect first. Now, it doesn't have to be lifting, but lifting is the easiest way to, gauge results. You might be a runner or a CrossFitter or whatever. Generally still, physical as a whole, physical health generally takes years to become, top. It might be 1%, 5% or whatever. Have a top, well-respected physical, be well-respected by a large portion of the population in one physical endeavor. But most people default to the gym because, big muscles, big muscles. So if you are new to the self-improvement, delayed gratification, all this stuff, commit to the gym, get jacked first, and then you'll understand what it takes to become successful. And you can just apply that in every aspect of your life. And you don't even have to think anymore, because if you've gotten jacked, you've spent 5, 8, 10 years looking incredible, building a physique that you're proud of, that other people respect, you know what it takes. Now, obviously, you're not going to fucking do bicep curls to make, you might do bicep curls to make your money, but you can apply the fundamental skills into other aspects of life, and it's easy. You don't really have to think too hard about it because you've done it. You know what it takes. You know the highs, you know the lows. It's just a matter of getting through it and falling in love with the grind. I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. If you're still here at the end of the video, I love you, and remember, life is what you make it.